Hello, and thank you for joining us for the third video in our Master Parenting Introductory video series. You're helping us build a community of parents that will change the national conversation about how we launch our children into college and beyond. We want them to be successful, responsible adults. This is our dream for our kids and for ourselves as parents. Thank you so much for all of your comments and questions. You've opened up your minds and your hearts to us, and we'll do our best to answer all of your questions by the end of this video. It's gratifying to know that so many parents care about their kids and want to know the best ways to encourage them to climb Grown Up Mountain. I am truly excited for our future when our own children will take responsibility for themselves, for their families, and for our world. I hope you share this vision. Now, if you haven't watched the first two videos, you might want to click on those first and catch up. In video 1, we discussed how to get your college-age kids to act like grown-ups. We introduced Grown Up Mountain and how we have a nurturing role to play in helping our children to climb it. Children want freedom without responsibility. Parents don't trust their children with freedom until they demonstrate that they're responsible. Parents can't carry their children up Grown Up Mountain, and they can't abandon them on the side of the mountain either. Parents can be intentional about making a conscious decision about when we exercise control in order to keep our child out of danger, and when to expose our children to the consequences of their own actions so that they'll learn from their mistakes. Consequences are the best teachers for people of all ages. Now, I'm a certified facilitator of the work of Brené Brown. If you haven't heard of her, you should watch her talks on TED.com or read her New York Times best-selling books. Since I'm certified to present her work, I'm granted early access to the new book that she's publishing in August. The book is titled Rising Strong, and it's about getting up after we fall. In other words, it's about the value of struggle. We all fail and fall in life. This doesn't define us. What defines us is what we do next. Our kids deserve to struggle and fail so they can define themselves. In Brené Brown's book description, she writes, "Struggle can be our greatest call to courage and the clearest path to a wholehearted life." I'm so excited to know that one of my role models has now done the research to scientifically support this simple truth. Now, in the second video, we talked about how to motivate our children. We motivate them by giving them 3 great gifts that meet the 3 needs that they have in order to be motivated. Our first gift to them is autonomy. We stop controlling and allow them to define their own path. We gradually wean them from their dependence upon us. We each go at our own rate, but if they aren't ready to leave home and be independent by their senior year in college, then we're stuck with trying to finish this transition while they live with us after college or flounder on their own. Trust me when I say that it gets harder to teach our children how to be responsible and independent the older they get. Our second gift to our children is competence. We stop hovering and allow our children to figure out things for themselves. We support them through their failures. We transition from being a manager of our kids' lives to being a trusted advisor. We give them the self-confidence that comes from being successful on their own. Even a small success is something to build on. If they can learn to drag themselves out of bed without our help, then this simple step can eventually lead to being successful parents, co-workers, and leaders. The third gift that we offer to our children is relatedness. Instead of just letting go, we decide what to let go of and what to hold on to. We let go of control. We let go of being the manager of our kids' life. We hold on to being connected to our children. We hold on to the belief that everyone in our family belongs to the family. We encourage our children to connect with other trusted adults, friends, and co-workers. And we even encourage them to disagree with us. and we unconditionally love and support them through the learning process of failure. So now it's time for today's topic, which is how to stop giving in to guilt. Make sure to watch through the very end of the video because we're going to preview where we go from here. We said that we plan to offer help, and I want to give you a sneak peek at what that help looks like. You joined us on the ground floor of this movement, this community. This means that you have a unique opportunity to influence our direction. We also want to equip you with every tool that we have at our disposal. We want you to be confident and competent so you will skillfully navigate the tricky waters of your kids' transition to adulthood. Now let's check in with Janet, who will talk with you about how to stop giving in to guilt. Janet?
Thanks, Steve. Let's talk a little bit about guilt. What do I mean by giving in to guilt? Guilt is a form of manipulation. When a person guilts somebody into doing something, they are attempting to get them to do something that they already decided against. Guilting is playing on people's emotions in an attempt to get them to go against what they know is right intellectually. It goes both ways. A parent can be made to feel guilty by their child, and a child can be made to feel guilty by their parents. When I looked up guilt in the dictionary, I found this example. Celeste had been guilted into going by her parents. Are you surprised that the parent-child relationship was used even by the dictionary to describe the word guilt? Although guilt goes both ways, today we're going to focus on kids guilting their parents. Just realize that the more parents guilt their kids, the better the kids learn how to guilt the parents. The most potent way a kid has to guilt a parent is by implying that they were a bad parent in some way. If they can get parents to tell themselves, "I'm a bad father," or "I failed as a mother," then they can get what they want, even if what they want isn't in the best interest of the child. In other words, by giving in to guilt, the parent often becomes a less effective parent. They give in to their own pain to make themselves feel better. Instead of saying no to their kids, a man I know told me, sometimes when I'm writing a check to my kid, I have to ask myself, who am I writing this for? Ouch. So, is it all your fault? Are you really a bad mom? Are you really a failure as a dad? If your grown-up kid struggles with life or is unhappy or unsuccessful, is it because you're a bad parent? I want to tell you the truth about parents. It's not all your fault. Let me repeat that. It's not all your fault. Your kids probably won't tell you this. Our culture definitely doesn't tell you this. Your spouse may not even tell you this. But it's not all your fault because you're not omnipotent. You're not all-powerful. You do not have complete control over your kids' lives. Not that we don't try. It's not all your fault because you're not the only one who has influence over your kids. You share this influence with your spouse, even if he or she is not around. You share it with other family members, teachers, your kids' friends, the media, the internet, and just about everything your kids are exposed to. It's not all your fault because adult kids are now responsible for their own choices, not you. They can blame you for the way they were raised, but it doesn't relieve them of responsibility for their own lives now. You're not omnipotent. You're not the only one, and your kids are now responsible for their own lives. So you can stop feeling and acting as if you bear full responsibility for how they turned out. Now, it may well be partially your fault and partially other people's fault, but is determining who is at fault really the most productive thing to do? It doesn't take more than a minute for the media to ask who's to blame when a tragedy happens. In a school shooting, who's to blame? I would think this is obvious. It's the shooter. Yet our culture of blame waste no time blaming the parents, and particularly the mothers. Focusing on who's to blame for the past isn't productive. So long as your children can blame you for what happened in the past, they do not have to take responsibility for what's happening to them in the present. Here's an example. A parent I'll call Wendy used to feed her daughter when she was a little girl, not only when she was hungry, but also when Wendy wanted to pacify or reward her. As a result, Wendy's daughter was overweight and continued to eat when she wasn't hungry. Was her daughter's emotional eating Wendy's fault? Perhaps back then it was, at least in part. But here's what Wendy has to say about her daughter now. I haven't been putting food in her mouth for years, but as long as I accept the blame, she never has to deny herself another chocolate eclair. Certainly, parents can apologize for the mistakes they made as parents. Please, please apologize if you feel so led to do so. It's not a weakness. All parents make plenty of mistakes. Sometimes just acknowledging this to our children is enough. One day, they'll need to know that parents make mistakes. It's the nature of parenting. And kids are resilient. Kids may be waiting for parents to acknowledge what happened, make amends, or change their behavior. And this can make all the difference. It's never too late for parents to work towards better relationships with their children. But it doesn't make sense for parents to compound their mistakes by giving in to guilt over them. So, how do parents of adult kids avoid giving in to guilt? I'm going to rely here on the substance abuse recovery community to help answer this question. If you remember from some of my earlier talks, I was in Al-Anon for a number of years in my first marriage, when my husband was dealing with addiction to alcohol. Believe me when I tell you that active substance abusers are among the most manipulative people out there, because nothing can stand in the way of their next drink or their next high. It is the nature of their illness. And parents are prime candidates for their manipulation, because they will often grant them access to their next high, sometimes without even realizing what they're doing. Parents see their children in pain and they want it to stop. But guilt is so often hiding under the surface. And of course, children don't have to be substance abusers in order to manipulate parents through guilt. Parents who give in to guilt are actually taking the easy way out. This is because giving in doesn't require them to deal with the original offense and change their own behavior. But giving in doesn't work very well. It only relieves the parent's own pain of guilt, and even then only temporarily. This cycle keeps both parents and children wallowing in self-pity. Have you ever heard somebody agonize over how they cause pain to somebody else, but they seem to only talk about their own pain? Well, I have. What if there was a way to confront the pain head-on in a way that parents can move through it? What if there was a way to get out of this muddy, uncomfortable place? Isn't it time for parents to acknowledge that they've caused our children pain, made amends for it, and stop giving in to guilt? How do parents confront their pain head-on so that they can move through it? Here's what I learned when going through my own journey of recovery from being an A+ enabler. Before parents can confront their pain, they need to stop giving in so they can start to deal with the real issues that are causing the pain in the first place. But how do they do this? I'm going to give you 3 ways. First, there's a recovery saying that goes, I will stop at nothing to help you get better, but I will not do one more thing that will allow what's happening now to continue. Now, what does this mean to us as parents? It means that we'll do everything we can to help our children get past emotional wounds of the past, especially if we inadvertently help to cause them or fail to protect them. But we stop giving in to guilt because it actually allows the pain to continue. Here's the second way to stop giving in to guilt. Parents who give in to guilt should imagine this process continuing for the rest of their lives. If the parents continue to give in to guilt, they are encouraging their kids to continue guilting them. Imagine feeling the same old guilt over and over until the parent dies. Imagine parents and children stuck in the same pattern 5 or 25 years from now. It's not a good feeling, trust me. I personally know story after story of parents who lost their entire life savings giving in to guilt. Parents who spent a lifetime begging and pleading with their children to take responsibility for their lives, and only after the parent died did the child do so. Believe me, this is the saddest of cases, and I don't want that to happen to me or to you. Now here's the third way to stop giving in to guilt. Let this sink deep into our bones. When we are giving in to guilt, we are saying yes to something that we know hurts our kids. And the worst part is, we're doing it to make ourselves feel better. We can't change the past, we can only change the present. And by changing our present, we can have a huge impact on our future. The best way to make amends to our children is not by giving in to guilt. Instead, we change our behavior. I'm going to repeat that again. We change our behavior. We show our kids by our actions that things are different now. They still may not forgive us for a very long time for some perceived wrongdoing, maybe not ever. But part of changing is to stop doing things that perpetuate what keeps us stuck. Giving in to guilt, what we know, when we know it, better handicaps our children's present and their future. And with that, I'll return to Steve. Steve?
Thanks, Janet. Parents who give in to guilt are simply running from their guilt. The best way to get rid of guilt is not around, but through. Treating children from a place of love rather than guilt means that the parent stops acting like a victim and starts being proactive about transforming their relationship with their kids, even when it's hard to do emotionally. Now it's time to answer parent questions. If you recall, we sent you an email before we shot this set of videos, and you responded with some great questions. We did our best to answer your questions during this video series. However, there were a few questions that didn't naturally fit into the 3 topics for the 3 videos. So we'd like to take a few minutes to answer those questions now. Here's our first question. A parent writes, "My frustration deals with our soon-to-be college sophomore. He wants to live off campus in an apartment. We feel that he's not ready for this yet. He will not let it go. We believe being on campus is a better choice. Our fear is too much freedom, the commute, late nights, and friends, and of course we fear that he will not keep up his grades. While this may seem petty, this has been a trying conversation. Are we being overprotective? He thinks he has grown, but we still pay his way. How do we compromise?" Thank you for asking this question. It's a great example of what we talked about with Grown Up Mountain. Kids want freedom without responsibility. Parents are afraid to give their kids freedom until they demonstrate that they can handle responsibility. Now, as a certified coach, I know better than just to tell you what to do. This depends on your unique circumstance, your history, your prior experiences, and where you and your son are on Grown Up Mountain. I was trained as a coach to ask good questions, powerful questions, that will help you clarify what your options are and what you really want for your son. Then you can decide the best way to get there. Now, of course, I can't conduct this type of dialogue right here on this video, but I'll do my best. Later on, you'll have a chance to invest in our Master Parent Solution program, and I look forward to being able to have a real coach conversation with you. Now, certainly you have the right to tell your son that he can live anywhere he wants just as soon as he pays for it. And that might be the best decision for you and your family. But let's go deeper. I want you to look at this as an opportunity right now to help your child climb Grown Up Mountain. After college, he may be able to support himself and pay for his own apartment. In fact, I bet that's one of the goals that you want for him. So here's my powerful question. What needs to happen in the next 1 to 3 years for you to be comfortable with him renting his own apartment? And here's your next powerful question. What's your role in helping him get there? I think answering these questions will help you decide whether this can be his next step in allowing him to learn what it's like to have the responsibilities of a grown-up. It may be too much too fast. After all, I don't know how much climbing he's done on his own so far. But this may be an opportunity for your son to find out what happens if the water bill doesn't get paid, or if the neighbors complain. If he takes a summer job in order to pay the security deposit, then he'll remember how hard he had to work as the security deposit is lost to the damage caused by one night of hard partying. He gets to find out what happens if his grades slip. Does he know what those consequences are? Have you tried to communicate this to him? So if this isn't the next step, then what is? What can he do this year so that he's responsible enough to have an apartment next year? If you communicate this to your son, make sure the things he can do are specific and measurable. Otherwise, you'll find yourself in the same situation next year, trying to explain why he isn't ready without the specifics and without a specific plan to get him ready. Whatever you decide, do so with the goal in mind. In this case, the goal is for him to gain the skills to maintain a household on his own, eventually without your help. In other words, you and your son have the same goals. You just disagree slightly on the timing. But he'll graduate before you know it, and these skills aren't suddenly bestowed on a child at college graduation along with their diploma. So good luck, whatever you decide. I know you'll make the right decision for your family. Now let's look at a group of questions that all address a similar topic. A parent asks, how does he stay organized during college? When they go away to college, we don't know what's due and when and how to keep on top of it. Another parent says, I worry that I sometimes do too much for him, such as filling out financial aid renewal forms. But it's hard to step back and then see him not follow through on important things. Another says, I'm afraid that their new sense of freedom will mean that they will make poor choices that will affect their whole lives. And yet another says, although you can learn from bad decisions, sometimes there's no going back and it can strain relationships, such as with financial problems. You get the idea. I hope my answer to the first question helps you with this process of giving them freedom and allowing them to fail. But what about when your child is about to fail with something important and we can stop it? In these situations, it takes real courage for us to step back and watch our children fail. Remember, I can fix it. I can fix it by keeping him organized. I can fix it by filling out important forms myself or nagging him until he gets it done at the last possible moment. I can keep him from screwing up his life. If I'm paying for college, I'll be darned if he's wasting my money on the opportunity to learn from his mistakes. Now remember, we do have an obligation to protect our children from true danger. There are times when mom or dad is the recipient of a 911 type call that requires that we spring into action. But all parents are tempted to redefine danger to be things like the danger of bad grades or the danger of being arrested. Is there anything good that can come out of getting bad grades or getting arrested? Well, my wife Jamie tells the story of her sister who went to college. She didn't take it seriously and she eventually dropped out. Her parents were understandably upset. But she found out what real life was like without a college degree. Eventually, she wanted to go back to college. Her parents, to their credit, decided not to help her financially. She had her chance for a free education, and now it was her turn to finance her own education. So she decided to hold down a full-time job, and she took on student loans, and she worked and studied evenings and weekends to put herself through college. You can bet she took it seriously the second time around. And she got her degree, and the sense of pride that comes with completing something really hard. Today she's one of the most responsible people I know. She has a high-paying job in the computer industry. She raised her boy with special needs as a single parent. Anyone who knows her would characterize her as a responsible, mature adult. Now, I hope this helps shed light on these issues. If you join us for our Master Parent solution, we'll have a chance to go into the details of your individual situations. Thank you again for your questions. And finally, I'd like to answer a set of questions that go something like this. One parent asks, what are healthy boundaries between parents and college students, especially when parents are financing education? Another asks, what are expectations with respect to transparency with grades? Here's another, how do we show interest and support in them without seeming like we're pushing into a space where we don't belong? And finally, once again, how do we stay informed about grades, etc.? Now, it comes as a shock to many parents that schools are not even authorized to release grades to parents, even though the parents are paying the tuition. It's an even bigger shock that often authorities in schools will not report that their child has been arrested, citing privacy concerns. It seems that the people who are in charge of policing our kids' good behavior are treating them like adults rather than children. How dare they? But seriously, there's a downside to these policies as well. Some kids desperately need help, and without proper notification, parents are left in the dark. But society is sending us a larger message, whether we think it's the right message or not. The message is, you no longer have the right to manage your kid's life. You no longer have the right. Not that this stops many parents. Some parents continue to manage their children's lives until the day they die. They do this by bribing them with money, resorting to emotional blackmail, and doing things for their children to keep them dependent on them. It's time for parents to make a transition. If there's nothing else you take away from this video series, remember this. The rewards of your children climbing their own grown-up mountain vastly outweigh the disadvantages. And you and your children will reap the benefits of a rewarding relationship for the rest of your lives. Now, more specifically about being able to see your kids' grades. Often kids get a sense of empowerment, that they finally get to decide on something and that their parents have to come begging to them. They feel that they have the power, the right to hold something over their parents' head for perhaps the first time. While this role reversal is exhilarating for the child, it causes an unnecessary power struggle. Now, you can play the power game. You can remind them that so long as you're paying for college, you get to see the grades. Just make sure that you're prepared to follow through on the threat. Are you prepared to stop paying for your kids' college over the issue of seeing their grades? Never bluff with your children. It teaches them to escalate the conflict and call your bluff. On the other hand, you can have a heart-to-heart conversation about grades with your child. I think because of the way Jamie and I treated failure with our children, they never really had a problem sharing their grades with us. Even when my son got a D+ in Japanese. So I encourage you to look deeper than the power struggle and identify and address the real issues that underlie the topic of grades. Now, if you need help identifying what this issue is, we're about to tell you how you can get some more individualized help and coaching. In fact, I want to turn this over to Janet to share exciting plans about the future. Since you've made the time investment to watch these videos, I know that you're going to be excited about what she has to say. Janet?
Thank you, Steve. You are absolutely right. We have been energized by your responses, and we look forward to interacting with you even more in the future. These are solutions that work, and we intend to share more and more of them with you. What you have heard so far in this series is just the tip of the iceberg. I hope we have given you valuable information in this video series, information that will make an immediate and positive impact in your relationship with your children and their success as emerging adults. Now I want to tell you how you can leverage this information to create a real transformation in your family. First, let me remind you of our vision for you and your family. I want you to take a minute to imagine your children, graduated from college, responsible and trustworthy, making wise, safe, and healthy decisions, and prepared to step into the workplace with the tools they need for success. Now, I want you to imagine yourself. You're not worried about your child's safety. You have the freedom that comes from knowing your child will be okay, and you're ready to step into your own dreams in this next chapter for your life. Now, imagine your relationship with your child. It's respectful and harmonious. It's connected. You stay in touch. And it's worry-free. And finally, imagine a family, your family, that stays in touch, that respects and supports each other's dreams and goals, where each member is emotionally and financially stable. Now, you may believe it's too late for this type of relationship with your adult children. We assure you it is not. We've worked with many families who were able to start over at this point in their relationship, especially at this point. You have a unique opportunity to transform your relationship with your child right now that will define your relationship with him or her for the rest of your life. This is your best chance to make changes in the way you approach your child that will help determine his or her success in life. As much as we packed into less than 2 hours, these videos won't by themselves create the real transformation you're looking for. Think about it like reading a book. You can spend many hours reading a how-to book on parenting your adult children, and it really makes a difference. But old habits die hard. We have a natural tendency to go back to our old patterns. In fact, every time we make a change, our kids expect the change not to last. This is why parents sometimes say, "Well, I've tried that and it didn't work." Yes, they tried something, and then they didn't see immediate results, so they stopped trying, just like their kids expected them to do. Now, I absolutely believe that if we change our approach to our kids, then our kids will change too. But we need to make our change consistent and permanent. So how do we do that? This is your opportunity to do more than try. Around here, try is a 4-letter word. It's taboo. If you ever hear me say it, I want you to call me on it. We took a risk when we decided what to say on these videos. They definitely were not marketing oriented. We didn't hold anything back to make you pay for the rest of the answer. We risked alienating you because you didn't agree with our advice. And we risked having you think that this was everything we had to offer, even though we know we have way more for you. But most of all, we took a risk by telling you the whole truth. We risked telling you that this work is hard. Now, I've listened to a few webinars about marketing, and most of them say to tell your potential customers that your solution is easy. Give them the impression that all they have to do is buy from you and their problems will be solved. But this goes against Steve's and my values and the type of community we're trying to build. Instead of telling you our solutions are easy, we've stressed that our solutions are simple. In fact, we've named our company after this, Real Simple Solutions. Parenting solutions, like all solutions in life, are simple, but they're hard. We all need support. We as parents need to be able to lean in and find that other parents are leaning in to help us too. Although Steve and I have decades of experience in the area of personal development, this is the first time we've focused specifically on parents of college students. Of all the people we've helped over the years, we felt in our hearts that parents of college students were our calling. Now, there are many reasons we feel passionate about this, but Steve and I have both been in the business world, and we see young adults getting out of college these days, and they're just not ready for independence. Why aren't they? Because they did not prepare for independence during the 4 years of college. They did not graduate with the practical life experiences they need to be successful in today's competitive world. They are not ready to hit the ground running. We think there are so many things that parents can do to ensure that their children are ready on day one after graduation. And that is what we want to share with you in our Master Parent Solution program. So, if you're ready to join Steve and me on this journey, you'll have the opportunity to get in on the ground floor of an opportunity to invest in you and your children a few days from now. We're going to open registration for our very first Master Parent Solution program. Now, you've all heard about people who invested very early in IBM or Apple or Google. This is your opportunity to be that early investor, and an opportunity that will define or redefine your relationship with your children for decades to come. As a founding member of this community, you will always have preferential treatment, preferential pricing, and recognition of your unique status. And we get the benefit of your influence. We get to tailor our offerings to match your needs. Then when we roll it out to the masses, we already know that it meets the needs of parents just like you. It's a win-win situation. We'll go over the details of this program in a webinar we're presenting next week. And we have plenty of free additional parenting tools to present then too. So even though this is the last video in our introductory series, it isn't the end of the free education we have for you. Make sure to look for a webinar announcement in your email within the next few days. But as a bonus for watching this entire series, I want to give you a little sneak peek. We're going to extend an invitation to, at most, 30 people to join us in our very first Master Parent Solution program. Why just 30? It's because we want our first program to be very intimate. We appreciate that many of you responded to the video series with very personal questions. We want to be able to offer you personal help. We want to be able to focus in on your specific issues, and keeping this first group small will allow us to do so. We want to hear from you and give you individualized help. We want to offer it at a price that would be unsustainable once we roll it out to a lot of people. It would be kind of like saying we'll lose money on every sale, but we'll make it up in volume. And we're going to make it worth your while to join us. We'll give you bonuses just for participating in the webinar. We want to make it a fun, great event, kind of like Oprah. We'll give you the chance to be our customer #1 and win a prize, but don't get your hopes up for a car. And if you choose to invest in our Master Parent Solution, we'll offer thousands of dollars worth of additional bonuses to make sure you know how special you are to us as one of our very first customers. We promise you by the end of the webinar, you'll wonder what more we can possibly offer you. And here's a confidential tip just for you. We plan to open registration early. We're going to temporarily open registration during the webinar as a bonus for attending. Now, I don't know how many people are going to sign up for the webinar, so I want to give you a heads up so you don't miss out. This is the first time we've offered this program. It's the first time we've tried to register people who found out about us online. And it's certainly the first time we've opened registration during a webinar. So it's possible that we could sell out the program during the webinar and never officially open our shopping cart. Like I said, I really don't know what the response will be. So look for our announcement in your email and make sure to sign up for the free webinar right away. And please do us a favor and leave a comment for us on the web page just below this video. I look forward to continuing on this journey with you, and until next time, be masterful.